You have difficulty hearing me. It may be that you're suffering from the same malaise as the British media and society as a whole, who have effectively blacked out the Socialist Labour Party and its leadership over the past period, or at least that's what they think. And yet it's ironic as we meet here today in 2008 that we meet in a very interesting period in our history. First of all of us know that we're facing the worst economic crisis, both in terms of the general economy, energy, unemployment, social misery and problems experienced since the Wall Street crash of 1929, or the unemployment which swept through America, through Europe, including of course the UK in the 1930s. It's important of course for all of us to fully understand what exactly took place during the 1930s, because the lessons of that time were going to have a profound effect upon how we deal with the situation now. If we read our history books long before the website and the internet, we will notice that it resulted in the rise of the right and fascism. So out of the economic disaster of the 1920s and 30s, but particularly the 30s, it saw all sorts of problems as a result of what was clearly a crisis of capitalism. We saw, first of all, the emergence of a socialist state in Spain, crushed by the forces of reaction, with all sorts of elements, including Nazi Germany, practicing how effective their dive bombers would be if they were used in any situation. It resulted in the infamous bombing of Guernica, epitomised in the wonderful painting, of course, by Picasso. But then it led to a whole series of events throughout Europe, as we gradually saw the rise of the right. And of course, here in Britain, we saw the rise of the right. Unemployment was rife, and social deprivation was the order of the day. The things that we're experiencing today, albeit all these years later, of all the elements that we then can look back and see in the history books of the period of the 30s. It's therefore interesting to note some of the things that we didn't know then that we know now. How many times, for example, have you heard that Stalin made a pact with Nazi Germany, and as a result of that it proved harmful to the United Kingdom in its opposition to Nazi Germany? Well, it's interesting because only 4 weeks ago it was revealed for the very first time that Stalin offered the United Kingdom a pact against fascism and Nazi Germany. I haven't heard too much on the BBC or ITV, and nor have I seen any reports in the English press. I'd actually got to see it in an Irish newspaper. You can buy them at King's Cross Station or St Pancras. And yet, all the arguments in the past have been that the alliance did not take place because nobody in the Soviet Union, as it then was, wanted it. A complete and utter lie. Look what happened. 27 million people in the Soviet Union died defending the West, yes, and the East, from the occupation by Nazi hordes and the impending takeover by fascism. Today we've got the similar type crisis. They're calling it the credit crunch. They're calling it the energy problem. they're saying that the markets are having a downfall. There is a downturn in the market. Well, the problem is exactly the same as it was before. It's not an economic problem. It's not a problem that's created by some mysterious movement of the pound or the dollar or the euro. It is in fact a crisis of capitalism. It is a society that is no longer capable of sustaining the market system that it consistently advocates. And of course, how are the left performing in the face of all this? Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Just look at the so-called left. We've got on the one hand organisations like the Communist Party, which is virtually non-existent, but in addition to that, its policies are almost indistinguishable from those of, say, the Liberal Democrats. Then we've got the Socialist Workers' Party, who were to the forefront in many struggles, who are now split and divided. We've got the Respect organisation, which was never a political party, who seem to have lost respect for each other and divided into two. We've got the Scottish Socialist Party, that was once hailed, forgive my accent, as the answer to the political prayer. Well, they've split as well. And if I had been in part of that split, I would certainly have chosen a better name than Solidarity, Solidarność. And they didn't do too well in the recent by-election, did they? Compare the results, for example, with the SLP's results in the 1999 European elections, or in many of the elections for the Scottish Parliament, the first of which we, by 0.5%, failed to get a member elected. I say this not as a critical comment upon the left, but a critical comment about the fact that each of them seem to think there is an alternative in coming together in the form of an alliance. If any member of this party needed any more explanation as to why an alliance is wrong, then simply look at what has taken place over the last 6 or 7 years. They're in complete and utter disarray. You can't have two philosophies, one on that side and one on this, coming together as a political organisation. Yes, we can have an alliance. Yes, we can have cooperation on issues. For example, whether it's a campaign to stop the war or against the European Union or the European Common Market as it was, we can always have common cause. But we cannot have a situation where we, in a sense, compromise our basic philosophy and basic principles first established by James Connolly when he and others founded the Socialist Labour Party in 1902. And we, of course, who refounded it in 1996.